Let's talk about what's required for assignment 1 in dxb211 creative coding. The assignment is called the Programming Sketchbook, and what you'll do is in the first half of the semester produce 3 programming sketches that respond to a series of creative briefs that we will give you in the first tutorials. So the tutorials from week 1 through to week 6 are all devoted to helping you with this assignment. There should be plenty of support to get you up and running to the level you need to be in order to do well on the assignment. So even if you're totally new to programming, don't worry, you should have enough time and enough support to do well on this assignment. If you go into Blackboard, you can find the page for assignment 1. I'm going to click into the task sheet and we'll go through that. The assignment is worth 40% and it's due on Friday the 8th of April at 11:59 p.m. That's the Friday of week 6. So you will have a tutorial in week 6 to work on it, but it's due that Friday. Also be aware that the assignment is eligible for the automatic 48-hour extension policy. So if you do need that little bit of extra time, that is available. But one thing I would say is upload your assignment early and often. I allow unlimited uploads. So rather than leaving everything until the last minute, it's much better to upload something partial early on, and then you can always upload something more complete later if you get something working better. Upload that later. So yeah, it's really sad when I hear from people that something went wrong right at the last minute and they had it working half an hour ago, but they hadn't uploaded it. So make sure you do that. There are 3 learning outcomes. It's about understanding the foundations of computer programming. So can you apply the computer programming concepts that we teach? Creatively applying programming principles to your design or creative practice, and then critically reflecting on the use of creative coding in current design practice in your field specifically. What you'd have to do basically is produce 3 P5JS sketches and 1 written reflective account that reflects on what you've done. Zip them all up together and upload to Blackboard. I mentioned the creative briefs. These are just sort of simple creative problems for you to solve with code. The first one is called active drawing. I already talked about that in the lecture for week 1. It's the idea of creating a computer program that lets someone draw, but where the computer program has a bit of an active role in that drawing process. So it's not just replicating Microsoft Paint, because we sort of already know how to do that. It's thinking a bit different about what a drawing program might be. The second one, recombination effects, is about taking images and sampling them or recombining them, taking colors from them, somehow manipulating existing images to create a new image. So creating new images from existing images. Can also be about using a series of images and animating them through time, and perhaps even making an interactive animation. Many of the visual design and interaction design students do well in this because they can apply their visual image making skills. And games design students think about this often in a really interesting way in terms of interactivity. Movable type is the last one, and that's about using text on screen to communicate some kind of meaning. So basically taking a word, let's say laughter, and finding a way of presenting that through code on the screen where the visual presentation or the movement or the animation somehow plays with the meaning of the word. You can look at the tutorial notes for week 5 to get a better idea of what we mean by that. One thing I wanted to say here and just make this really clear is that you cannot copy and paste code that you find online. A great thing about JavaScript is that there's lots of examples that we can learn from, but you also need to be really, really careful and vigilant that you don't end up copying and pasting code that came from somewhere else. So that's considered plagiarism, and we really keep an eye out for it, and we'll deal with it according to the QUT policies on academic integrity. So if you're ever confused about whether you can use an example you found online, please just talk to your tutor or come and talk to me, and we're really happy to help you navigate those processes of how much do I need to do, how much can I adapt. One thing that's really, really important is to always give correct attribution for any of the code that you've used sort of as an inspiration. And you can look at the style guide that shows you how to do that properly in the comment for your assignment. That written part, it's a fairly short document. It's only about 500 words in total. And students often ask me, do I need to write about everything that I've done, or can I just focus on one of the sketches? So what I always say, it depends on what you want to present. It's totally fine to focus on one sketch and just spend a bit more detail on your creative process for that sketch. But you might also have a more general reflection on what creative coding means for you and your creative practice. Both of those things are fine. But in general, we want to see these three parts. We want to see a list of your design and aesthetic choices, just thinking about, well, what did I do with this code? What was my thought process? So a good idea is to keep notes as you go, keep little screenshots of your code as it progresses. That makes writing that one a lot easier. Your approach to the creative process as well, like how did you do, what ways did you find in order to create these sketches? What were your creative influences? And then a list of any references that you used, and that does not count towards the word limit. You're marked on the knowledge of programming, the creative outcomes, and the relation to the field. So take note here, the programming part is only about 30% of the total mark, right? It's only 1/3 of the total mark. So even if you're new to programming, don't worry too much. The actual programming part is not the biggest part of this assignment. It's really more about how you apply what you do learn creatively. And we don't expect you to be applying programming concepts that we haven't taught in those first 6 tutorials. So we're really just looking for you to cover what we introduce in the tutorials. And you don't have to represent everything that we are showing, but there are a few kind of key concepts that we expect to see. And your tutors will give you guidance on what we want to see in the assignment. As I update this, often people find errors in the document. I'll make a note of any changes I make to the document here. You can also find the marking criteria on the Blackboard site. I'm not going to go through that because that's really much more detail than we need for this quick intro video. But just one other thing to point out is the discussion forums on Slack and Blackboard, a really good resource. And there's that style guide that I mentioned. And this is really worth checking out. Just it will give you some really concrete tips on how to format your code and how to give that correct attribution that can make quite a difference to the mark. All right, that's it for this quick overview of what's required for assignment 1. Your tutors will take you through the assignment brief in more detail in class, so make sure you come along. Really the best way to succeed in this assignment is to come to tutorials, come to the lectures, and be engaged. We really line up the content that we're teaching to what you require for the assignment. That's all for me. I'm looking forward to see what you come up with in this creative coding assignment. Bye for now.